always get sad reactions. For this one, it might get a bit controversial, but hear me out and try to understand the context of this. It is super unhealthy, but it has so much flavor. Oh, it's so delicious, and my brothers and I used to fight about who would get the... Hello cookies, it's Yuri, I am back, and for the first time in more than a year, I have foundation on. I took some official photos and I had no plans to film, but I don't want to waste the foundation and doing my face a bit properly for once, so I thought I would film this video for you that I had written a while ago already, and I kept on adding things and thinking about it. As you can tell from the title, it is about the habits that I have kept since growing up in Madagascar, frugal habits that have helped save me money and also I think keep me grounded-ish. I could be way more grounded, but I think kind of grounded. Those habits have given me peace of mind because I have not thought too much about the stuff that I don't have. I wrote a really long script in my phone and I don't want to miss anything. So the first habit that I kept is using everything up to the last drop. So cutting up jars and containers to get the last of everything, especially products in liquid forms like skincare or yogurt. One of my pet peeves when I watch cooking videos is when the person does not scrape the bowl where there is the dough or the liquid dough or some thick sauce, and they just do this motion and there's still so much left and it's at least 2 spoonfuls left of food. It drives me insane because I want to reach out through the screen and just grab the bowl and scrape it for them because there's still so much food left, and the idea of just wasting that and not scraping to the very end is so foreign to me. And it's the same for skincare. It doesn't matter if it's skincare that I bought myself or skincare that was gifted to me. I always cut the containers, and I do the same with toothpaste and with shower gels. I just want the last drop of everything, and in the long run it really saves me a lot of money, and it's just super satisfying to know that I'm getting my money's worth of something and not just wasting stuff that is usable, stuff that was paid for with real money, stuff that inherently has value because it exists and resources have been extracted to make that stuff. So the least I can do is use it up. The second thing is to make use of everything strategically. In Madagascar, we are so good at using everything. So when it comes to rice, which we cultivate a lot, the husks are given to livestock and chicken. And of course we eat the rice because rice is freaking amazing. But we also have the rice water as a nice drink. You just put sugar into it and it's so delicious. Rice water with sugar, and especially when you have a lot of white sugar, it's not healthy, but I did that a lot as a child and a teenager. Oh, especially if the rice is slightly burnt, so the drink has a slightly burnt taste. Oof. 3-4 spoons of white sugar, very unhealthy. Delicious. Even the brown, gooey, slightly burnt stuff that is on pans when you fry food and when you have ginger or garlic or onion, and then this residue, we call it kokan. It is super unhealthy, but it has so much flavor. Oh, it's so delicious, and my brothers and I used to fight about who would get the kokan, and it was always the one who was the fastest who would get it, and the others would sulk. We tried to use everything, and we use everything strategically. When it comes to my skincare and beauty products, I have blindly bought some lipsticks before. Many of them I have used up because I mix the shades. Alone, they look terrible on me, but I always have enough so that I can mix, and you don't even need a massive collection, but if you have, I'd say 3-4 lipsticks, you can definitely make tons of shades with them, and that's how I use up my lipsticks. And so this is a mix of 3 different colors that separately look awful on me, but together they look quite okay. And the same goes for sunscreen. I have tried a lot of sunscreen in my life and most of them give me acne, so I use them for my hands, for my chest, for my back, for my legs, for my body, so I don't really need to buy body sunscreen as often. Of course, face sunscreen sometimes is is not waterproof, so you have to keep in mind that you need to know what you put in where, especially if you go in swimming or to the beach, but otherwise it works fine. The third is borrowing as a first reflex. A strong sense of community is the biggest strength of Madagascar. We usually know our neighbors, and if you live in a village like I did, we lived a little outside of the capital city, you would know most people in that village. We knew who died, who got children, who is sick, who works where, and so on. As a result, it was easy to borrow things around. If we needed some particular gardening tools, a lot of neighbors have some because we were surrounded by a lot of farmers. There's no need to buy a tool you will use once or twice, like for example a brouette. But for example, if you need a brouette to move stuff around in your garden and it's just a 1 or 2 time situation, you don't need to buy one because you can just ask the people in the village if someone has a brouette you can borrow for the afternoon. And that was always the first thing we did when we needed stuff in my family or with my extended family. Everyone just asked one another if we knew someone, and if the person that you're asking doesn't have it, they probably know someone who has it, or they know someone who has it. And that's a habit that I have kept. When I need something, I tend to just ask people if they have it to borrow it instead of buying it. For example, I needed tape in Lund, and the first thing I did was try to ask my flatmates. They did not have any, but they said yes, but it's super cheap, you can get it at the store. And of course I could have gotten tape at the store, but the idea of needing tape once and buying tape was such a weird concept. I don't need the whole, 30 meters of tape. I just need a tiny piece to put on the mailbox and that's it. So I tend to borrow things. When I film with my other real camera, I borrow Sebastian's fancy lens because he has so many fancy lenses. I borrow his foam roller and so on. So I don't have the need right now to buy a fancy lens or a foam roller because we live together and I can just borrow his. A lens is quite pricey, but a foam roller is usually quite cheap and I could have my own. But then again, it makes no sense because there's one in this household and I can just borrow his. I have been thinking of asking some of the neighbors if I could borrow someone's sewing machine because I have a dress that I want to upcycle into a skirt. I don't want to buy a sewing machine for that purpose because I will never use it again. I'm not really into sewing unless I mend in my clothes, which I will talk about later, then it's okay. But the hobby of sewing does not interest me at the moment, mainly because I find it quite difficult. I did sewing in Madagascar growing up because I studied at an all-girls Catholic school and sewing was part of the curriculum and I had really good grades. We did sewing, stitching, we did embroidery, we did so much stuff and it was a lot of fun, but I also remember it was difficult. I don't want a freaking sewing machine. I would use it once and maybe twice in my whole lifetime and then I would not use it again. So I would really like to ask the neighbors, but I also know that this is Germany and it would be such a weird thing to just ask in the neighborhood group chat, hi, does anyone have a sewing machine? Also, I don't know how to use a sewing machine, so I would need to ask them to teach me and stand next to me as I'm using it, so I would need to go to their house, and so it's a little bit complicated. In Madagascar it would have been no big deal. I could have asked anyone in the neighborhood who has a sewing machine. It would not be weird. Here I think they would think I'm freaking insane for asking to not only borrow the sewing machine but also go to their house, but I'm still really thinking about it because I really want to upcycle the freaking dress. The game of the day is a game where you arrive on an island and you have to survive and start building the city, the community. You have some fishing and you have some growing crops and quests and things like that. And no, it's not Animal Crossing, it's Dinkum. I picked Dinkum because I have been playing it constantly for the past 2 weeks, and also because it is based in a fictional Australia. You have kangaroos, you have crocs, you have great white sharks, you have wombats, I freaking adore wombats. You have emus, and you have those big birds that are not emus, that are super aggressive. You have spiders, and you have the hot warm weather, and you have the typical different landscapes of Australia. It's a freaking lovely game. I was skeptical before because it was still in early access and I usually prefer games that are already finished. And when it was finished, I tried the demo, absolutely loved it. And so I waited and waited and waited and waited for a sale. Sebastian gifted it to me, but I was already thinking of getting it as soon as it was on sale. Sebastian was just quicker. It's a freaking lovely game. I never really clicked with Animal Crossing. I found it both too daunting and too much and too huge, but also too boring. While I like Dinkum, people have said that the aesthetics aren't quite there, but for me, I really like the aesthetics. I like the mechanics better. I like the spiciness of having animals trying to kill you. It just clicked way more than Animal Crossing. Maybe it's also because I've always wanted to move and live in Australia. And one big plus is that it's available in French. And I like when games are in French. For me, I tend to buy them more when they're in French. There have been games that I've been waiting for, but they're still not translated to French, and so I'm not going to play them yet. But Dinkum is available in multiple languages. As I have started to mention, the next point is mending and fixing as a first thought instead of thinking about buying a new one. This applies to clothes and cars, and yes, Malagasy people are really good at fixing cars, especially my uncle, who can fix anything and everything, not just cars, but he has also done a lot of repairs in their homes. Malagasy people will fix anything and everything first instead of thinking of throwing it or buying a new one. It's not even a question of money, because of course Madagascar is a poor country, but it's just a way of thinking that, yeah, but I already have it, and if I can fix it, I can just keep using the same thing. Why would I need a new one? That is the thinking that I have with everything, especially since I am picky with the material items that I bring into my life. In Madagascar, we go to welders, carpenters, builders, tailors, and so on if we can't fix things ourselves, because due to or because of the economy, they are still affordable enough. In Sweden or here in Germany, it's impossible to casually go to those people because they charge a lot, and rightfully so. I mean, you need to make a living and you have earned the right to charge for your skills. I have fixed plenty of electric appliances, mended clothes and shoes. You have seen me do that a lot, repaired furniture and so on myself. I did study carpentry in Stockholm, so I have a bit of an advantage there because I'm comfortable with tools. And someday I would like to own a verkstad, which is, I guess, a garage, a woman cave where I have a lot of tools and wood and stuff to build my own furniture, to build stuff, maybe some welding as well, because I'm super interested in welding. I'm always proud of myself when I manage to do things myself. That is something that brings so much satisfaction and so much confidence when I'm like, oh, I fixed it myself. That is so freaking cool. So even just for like self-love or patting myself a bit on the back or on the shoulder, it feels nice. And I will have you know that I fixed a Pokemon Crystal cartridge before when I was a teenager, when I was 14 or 15. My parents bought one from Malaysia that was already defectuous, and I managed to fix it long enough to actually play for a while, and then it died for good and I could not fix it anymore. But I was just so pleased with myself because I opened it fully, I tried to understand how the electrics worked and stuff, and I did some welding and it worked. It's probably not super complicated, but I don't know, it's still such a good story to tell people. For this one, it might get a bit controversial, but hear me out and try to understand the context of this. So number 5 is putting more effort into my character and brain than into appearances. Don't get me wrong, we also enjoy human aesthetics in Madagascar and we still want to look good. But, for example, when talking about their potential daughters-in-law to their friends, a mother would say first that she is tsuch and tsaratez. Tsuch means easygoing. Tsaratez means well raised. When it comes to that word tsuch, the direct translation would be simple. If something is tsuch, something is simple. And I have complimented some of my exes a lot on that because it's also a character trait that I appreciate very much when someone is tsuch, because I was raised in Madagascar. And I would tell my exes, oh, I love you because you're so simple. I always get sad reactions because in English, yes, simple means a bit slow in the head. While for me, simple is literally one of the best compliments I could ever give you as a person, because I was raised knowing that being tsuch, simple, or easygoing is the best thing. So someone who is tsuch is someone who's very good at etiquette. So they make people comfortable around them. They are not snobbish. They're easygoing enough that you serve them any kind of food. They're happy. They can make friends with anyone and everyone. They don't complain too much. They're not like, oh my God, I need a perfect 27 degrees temperature indoors with 47% humidity. That's basically the best trait that you could usually have in Madagascar, and that does not only apply to women, it also applies to men. When someone says, tena tsucha means, which is like, they're so easygoing, it's a very, very good positive thing that everyone wants to hear about themselves. And then, of course, the potential mother-in-law or father-in-law would say, and he or she is tsaratez, which is well-raised, and that's also so freaking important. The reason for that is that if you're tsaratez, well-raised, that means that your family is respectable enough to have raised a good human being with values that are considered good in Malagasy society. And being respectable here has nothing to do with money or back then with how many cows you had, because those were a strong currency. It just means that you have good moral values that the community as a whole appreciates. But of course, if someone is good looking, they would say manza mitizia, which is about a girl that she's so pretty. And if a guy is handsome, then he's bogos. So of course, someone could say tenatsuchis, tsaratez, sad mans, sad bogos. So first of all, you are easygoing, then you're well raised, and then you're good looking or you are pretty. It's usually in that order. But now keep in mind that I'm already 32 and I'm not aware of how the current generation sees things, because we have TikTok and Facebook and Instagram, and even Madagascar is very global. Yes, I know it's a poor African country, but people have access to the internet and to a more global way of thinking. So I'm not sure if it's still the case nowadays that you value morals and how you were raised and your character more than your looks. When my mother talks about her friends' kids, she always goes with hard working, so they're working super hard, or they have multiple degrees, or they have studied a lot. So more like things like that before looks. For Malagasy standards, I am already way too superficial. For Stockholm standards and the standards that some Western countries have, I could be seen as not feminine enough. I have had men on dates or even people that I have been with, especially one person, complain that I am not feminine enough because I don't get my lashes done, I don't get my nails professionally done, I don't dye my hair anymore, I'm not really fashionable. I mean, clearly, Cookies, you've seen my outfits, I'm not the most fashionable person out there. I have not really epilated my thighs in a decade. I do the legs, but I don't do the thighs because I don't care enough. I think it looks soft and nice, and I want to keep my thigh hair. I have never done fillers or Botox or any plastic surgery or anything like that either. I have met women where they told me that the men from their culture expect them to always wear high heels, be super well dressed, have their hair nicely blown out, put on makeup and be super feminine, basically spend a lot of time and money and effort into their appearances, and oftentimes the men pay for those looks to happen. The men from those cultures would definitely think I'm a freaking bum, troll, just not feminine enough. While I know, because I have been told that by some family members and acquaintances of my parents, that I am considered quite zeds in Madagascar, and zeds is someone who cares about their appearance. That applies to both men and women. It's not super negative, like superficial, but it's almost negative, and depending on the tone that you use when you say zed, it can mean either neutral or bad. I care about my appearance and I care about skincare and I try to look okay for myself. Sometimes when I can't afford stuff like lasers or when I don't really feel like putting the effort, it's not that important because I was not raised thinking that my looks were everything, that if my looks were to go to hell or I would let myself go for a moment, it would suck. It's better if I am kind, I am well raised, I am polite with people. I try to cultivate my brain, and that doesn't necessarily mean university, but reading books, watching documentaries, being knowledgeable about the world, about different topics. That is way more important than just looking cute. And so that's why sometimes I'm like, I'm not cute, but at least I think I am polite and I try to be kind to people. And that's it, cookies. I will see you very, very soon. Bye. The third, the third, why? I can't say this. The third, what? The third, okay, number 3